It was a bright Saturday afternoon when I decided to run a few errands, the kind of day that carried a sense of ordinary weekend routine. With sunlight warming the asphalt of the parking lot outside the neighborhood supermarket and a steady stream of cars, weaving through the rows in search of vacant spaces, and although I had been to this store countless times before, I approached the lot with the usual combination of patience and vigilance, scanning for an open stall where I could back in safely, a preference I had developed over years of experience because reversing into a parking space makes leaving significantly easier and allows one to better assess oncoming traffic when exiting. As I navigated the lot, I noted the familiar patterns of drivers maneuvering in ways that seemed impulsive at times. Some ignoring painted lines entirely, others hesitating in a way that disrupted the natural flow. And I carefully weaved between the moving cars, waiting for an opportunity to claim a spot that would allow me to park without obstructing anyone or risking minor collisions, aware that even small errors in judgment in these crowded suburban lots can quickly escalate tensions. I spotted a suitable space near the entrance, a stall wide enough to accommodate my vehicle with empty spaces on either side. And I positioned my car slowly, engaging the backup camera and mirrors. Turning the wheel gradually to align the tires with the painted lines, my movements deliberate to ensure a smooth entry. And as I began reversing, I became vaguely aware of a woman standing near the vehicle parked directly opposite, her arms crossed and an expression of thinly veiled indignation fixed upon her face, a posture that suggested observation with judgment rather than casual waiting, though I initially assumed she would do nothing more than step aside once I had completed my maneuver. I finished reversing into the space with care, applied the parking brake, and shifted the vehicle into park, and as I prepared to gather my belongings from the passenger seat, the woman stepped closer. Her sunglasses perched on her nose, head tilted slightly, and in a voice that carried across the lot. She spoke with an authority that implied entitlement to dictate the behavior of those around her. "You know you're not supposed to do that." I turned toward her, startled, and asked cautiously. I backed into the spot, hoping to clarify the complaint and avoid escalation, because from my perspective, the stall was empty. The process had been conducted carefully, and the space had been claimed according to common courtesy and spatial logic. "Yes, you can't just back in like that," she replied, her tone rising slightly with each word as if decibels alone could establish the seriousness of her accusation. And I gestured toward the adjacent lanes to indicate that there was no impediment to traffic and that the cars behind me had ample room to maneuver. "Sorry," I said evenly, trying to de-escalate. I backed in slowly, checked my mirrors, and there's no one behind me. Nothing happened. Her expression hardened further, and she took out her phone with deliberate motion, lowering her sunglasses just enough to glare at me more directly. And in a voice that suggested she was informing a tribunal rather than a casual observer, she said, "I don't think you understand. I'm calling the cops. This is reckless." I froze for a moment, disbelief washing over me, as the situation had escalated from a minor disagreement about parking etiquette into a potential legal intervention. And although my initial reaction was incredulity, I recognized that remaining calm was essential, because any visible frustration on my part might be interpreted as confirmation of the aggressive behavior she was describing. And so I stepped slightly aside, allowing her clear access for her call, and focused on breathing evenly, maintaining a posture of neutrality. While she spoke rapidly into the phone, describing me as reckless and dangerous, I noticed a few nearby shoppers pause to watch, some raising eyebrows, others visibly uncomfortable, and I realized how ordinary situations can suddenly attract an audience when someone decides that their personal grievance warrants public attention, even police involvement. Within a matter of minutes, 2 uniformed officers arrived, stepping out of their patrol car with professional composure, and the woman immediately directed their attention toward me, repeating her account with dramatic urgency, emphasizing that I had backed into the spot recklessly, created a potential hazard, and refused to acknowledge her presence, despite the danger she alleged. And though her narrative lacked factual support, her insistence alone had generated sufficient tension to warrant a neutral assessment by trained law enforcement. The officers approached carefully, maintaining a respectful distance, and I raised my hand slightly to convey openness, explaining in calm, precise terms that I had chosen the space, reversed carefully into it, monitored surrounding vehicles, and ensured there was no risk to other cars or pedestrians. that my actions were deliberate and cautious, and that I had acted within the bounds of safe driving practice. They listened attentively, nodding as I described each step of my maneuver, and then asked her to clarify what she had witnessed, at which point she insisted again that my driving was reckless and intimidating, though no actual damage had occurred, a distinction that the officers noted and used as a basis for their professional judgment. The manager of the store, having observed the interaction from a distance, came forward to confirm that I had parked without incident and that no other vehicles had been endangered, and the pharmacist, who had been stocking shelves nearby, also corroborated that the entire maneuver had been conducted without confrontation until the woman initiated her complaint. And the officers considered these statements carefully, weighing witness accounts against her claims of danger. After a brief discussion, the officers explained to her that backing into a parking spot, when done cautiously and without creating a hazard, does not constitute criminal behavior, that while she was entitled to her opinion regarding courtesy, her perception of risk did not transform a standard parking maneuver into a matter requiring police intervention, and that future disagreements over such minor issues would not fall under the purview of law enforcement unless an actual offense occurred. Her protestations continued briefly, framed in terms of responsibility and civility. But the officers' calm, measured responses reinforced that the complaint had been disproportionate, and they advised all parties to maintain composure and patience in crowded parking lots to prevent misunderstandings from escalating. Advice I accepted with quiet relief, grateful that the situation had not deteriorated further and that the narrative being constructed by her exaggeration had been tempered by professional evaluation. As the officers departed, leaving us with the still hum of the lot and the occasional shuffle of other shoppers, I retrieved my belongings from the car, reflecting on the surreal progression from a routine parking maneuver to an encounter involving law, enforcement, and false characterization. And I resolved that while I could not control others' perceptions, I could control my response, maintaining calm, clarity, and composure, even in the face of irrational escalation. Walking into the store, I focused on the mundane rhythm of shopping. The fluorescent lights above, the hum of refrigeration units, the quiet murmur of fellow customers discussing their own errands, and I recognized that these ordinary, controlled environments provide a grounding contrast to the heightened emotion and dramatization that can emerge in public spaces when entitlement intersects with impatience. As I selected groceries and navigated the aisles, I replayed the incident in my mind, noting how quickly minor disagreements in shared spaces can evolve when one party perceives a slight as a threat, and how the intervention of neutral, professional witnesses, whether store employees or law enforcement, can restore balance and prevent escalation from becoming harmful or permanent. By the time I returned to my car, the woman had left the lot, apparently satisfied that her complaint had elicited a police response, and I carefully reversed out of my space, again using the mirrors and camera to ensure proper alignment and safety. And I could not help but reflect with quiet amusement and lingering disbelief that the very maneuver she had deemed reckless was the precise action required to depart the lot safely, a truth that remained unacknowledged in her narrative. Driving home, I considered how ordinary behaviors, even when conducted with care, can be misinterpreted by others, and how maintaining composure, documenting events when necessary, and allowing facts to speak for themselves often provides a more effective resolution than engaging in argument or defensiveness. Lessons reinforced by the presence of impartial witnesses and professional assessment. In the days following the incident, I recounted the story to friends and family, emphasizing the importance of patience, awareness of public perception, and the value of calm under pressure. Recognizing that while the absurdity of being reported for a simple parking maneuver remained a source of humor, it also offered a profound reflection on human behavior, entitlement, and the ways in which minor inconveniences can be amplified when perceived through the lens of personal grievance rather than objective observation. By the end of the weekend, the incident had transformed in my mind from a moment of frustration into a story of resilience and perspective. A reminder that while we cannot control how others interpret ordinary actions, we can control our reactions, and that the most effective response to disproportionate behavior is often calm persistence, careful observation, and the trust that reason, witness testimony, and patience ultimately prevail over dramatized misinterpretation.